Okay, so first, big day. The Supreme Court has ruled in the case of the gay couple that tried to get a cake made and the Colorado baker refused to bake the cake. So that's what I'm going to be talking about, and I want to apologize up front. I was going to share the documents with you, but I had a technical issue with my screen sharing, so I've got them on my iPad here. I'll drop links below for you. Anyway, the first thing I want to say about this is I want to talk just a little bit about where I stand and have stood consistently on the issue of gay marriage. My position was always that I was offended by the idea that our tax money was spent on arguing the law as regards gay marriage. To clarify further, my point being, marriage is between two people and potentially a deity. So, two sovereign, self-owning individuals wish to sign a contract of exclusivity and partnership betwixt themselves. The immutable characteristics or personal identities of those entities are irrelevant to the legally binding nature of that contract. The government has no business in marriage. So it has never been that I was opposed to gay marriage. I think that it's not the government's business. I do and did oppose the Supreme Court decision to legalize gay marriage in the way that it occurred. And it's important why. Because what the Supreme Court effectively did is they passed a law. They created a law without the involvement or the entanglement of the legislature, which means that the Supreme Court, legislating from the bench to make gay marriage the law of the land, has left that as a law vulnerable to overturn. It would not be difficult at all, especially given judicial review, to overturn gay marriage as law, because it's not a legally, correctly, constitutionally established law. Now, to find that the non-enumerated rights alluded to by the 10th Amendment of the Constitution might include the concept of gay marriage is incorrect. Because there should not be a distinction there made as far as the identities of the individuals involved in the contract between themselves. Two consenting parties agreeing to a contract. And yes, I understand that opinion also opens it up to bigamy, polygamy, polyamory, all that. Pay your taxes. Be good people, don't break the law, pay your taxes. Now, why this case matters. And yeah, I know this will be the third episode in a row, the third video in a row where I've talked about Roseanne a little bit, but I'm gonna link this back to Roseanne and the NFL in just a minute here, because this is a question of free speech, and that's what the decision is based on. You see me gesturing over here. I've got my iPad right here with my notes on it. So the decision was based on a few major points, and I wanna just touch on those real quick. So the Supreme Court found that in shutting Phillips down, that's the Colorado-based baker, the ALJ, that's the administrative law judge who ruled in the court in the couple's favor, rejected. I'm reading straight from the Supreme Court decision here. Rejected Phillips' First Amendment claims that requiring him to create a cake for a same-sex wedding would violate his right to free speech by compelling him to exercise his artistic talents to express a message with which he disagreed and would violate his right to the free exercise of religion. So to be clear, what happened here is not that the couple walked into a bakery and picked out a wedding cake and asked if they could buy it. Right? It's not even that they walked in and said, hey, we want to buy this wedding cake for our gay wedding. No. They attempted to commission an artist to design a cake for their gay wedding, which assumably had artistic elements expressing the problem being that Phillips didn't want to express his support because he, on religious grounds, is opposed to gay marriage. Now, I don't care how you feel about gay marriage. Like we talked about on the show last night, like I went on about on the show last night, we have rights. As individuals, as humans, we have rights. Those rights end at your nose. If you punch somebody in the face, that's not okay. So, forcing someone to express an opinion, especially if you force them to express an opinion that is contrary to their opinion, is an absolute violation of their First Amendment right. Now, in this case, it is a violation of his right of free speech, free expression, and it is also an infringement on his religion. And it's not just that the couple was harming his freedom to practice his religion. Remember, the Constitution says that the Congress shall not establish respecting the free practice there, respecting the establishment of a religion or restricting the free practice thereof. So it's not the problem with this case constitutionally. It's not just that the couple was trying to force him to do something against his religion. The state, which means armed men with guns threatening to cause you murder, was trying to force this man to do something without deference to his religious liberty. That's further supported. It is further supported by the claims of the Supreme Court case that this was, in fact, absolutely a case of bias and bigotry and hate against a Christian because of his being Christian. Another indication of hostility is the different treatment of Phillips' case and the cases of other bakers with objections to anti-gay messages who prevailed before the commission. So what happened? There were other bakers, as according to the Supreme Court decision, there were at least 3 cases in the same area that appeared before the same legal group, before the same judge. And they were allowed to refuse service based on their opinion. It just happens that their opinion was somebody tried to buy anti-gay cakes. Probably as a form of protest on the whole gay cake controversy to begin with. But at least 3 different parties attempted to commission the artistic design of 3 separate anti-gay cakes. And the same commission that punished Phillips for refusing to make a cake for a gay wedding based on religious principles did not stop these other guys from refusing to make the anti-gay cakes. One of the reasons this decision is very important, Phillips must be allowed to refuse to make the cake. He must be allowed to refuse to provide his service of artistic design to people who are expressing an opinion through his voice by force with which he disagrees. If that is not the case, then it is absolutely the case that every Jewish baker who is approached for it must make swastika pretzels, Iron Cross cakes, whatever Nazi paraphernalia somebody wants to force a Jewish baker to make. A Muslim baker, a Muslim chef, could be forced to make a cake out of bacon, assuming this was not overturned in the way that it was. Okay? Now, so we're clear, where I stand on gay marriage It's nobody's damn business what two people do. Now, I asked my baby brother for permission. One of the things that slowed me down a little bit, actually, is I had to reach out to my baby brother, and I won't use his name here, or his husband's name, but I'm going to talk about him a little bit. My baby brother, in fact, the way he said it to me, he said, "I'm queer as a football bat," and I've used that expression before, and I've always thought it was hilarious. When my little brother told me he's gay, obviously we'd known each other for a little while, and I'm a very conservative, very outspoken person, which I'm sure you gathered from, if only this video. And he was afraid that I would take it very badly when he came out, and so he was hesitant. He was kind of slow about it. But when he told me, I was shocked by the language, because he didn't come out and say, "I'm gay." He said, "Chris, I don't know how to tell you this, but I fuck dudes." And I'm going to try for that to be the only F-bomb I drop in this episode, but it's a direct quote. And I asked him for permission also to share. I'm terrible. I left my notes on the table. Do, 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 do. I also asked him for permission to share a direct quote. He says, "My stance on it is, the baker is a commissioned artist. He can turn down any commission he wants for any reason. For example, a married couple might pay a painter $10,000 for a 3x5 oil-on canvas portrait. He says, cool. Then they show up to model for the painting and say they want it of them doing the nastiest sex act you can imagine. The painter can say he doesn't do nudes or XXX art or whatever. If they signed a contract, that's a court case. If no contract signed before that, no issue. Couple either doesn't get their portrait or they keep shopping for another painter." Exactly. An artist must be allowed to refuse any commission he seeks to. Any commission he wants to refuse, that is his prerogative. And no law should compel speech. Think about for just a moment Jordan Peterson, and then I'll get to Roseanne for just a second. Jordan Peterson he's famous now because of his stance on this question. A Canadian government entity was, and they did, I think the law actually ended up passing, but was pushing a law that would make it a hate crime punishable by fine or confinement to misgender a person. That is, to address a person not by their preferred pronouns. Without getting into all the messy, tangled web of how many ridiculous sets of preferred pronouns there are, and how impossible it is to guess them, and how ludicrous it is to have to begin every single conversation with the question, "What are your pronouns?" Without getting into that, at the very core of it, the law is compelled speech. It is a government pointing a gun at you and saying, you will think and speak in this prescribed manner. Bizarre that the anti-fascists couldn't muster any opposition to something like that, because forcing people to say things that the government wants you to say starts with a Z, ends with an aisle, thoughts, that is fascism. The utter dominance of the government over the people, that is a fascist nation. That's by definition what fascism is. Okay, so Peterson rose to fame famously for refusing to have his speech compelled by a violent government. Now, I hope that you are holding your belly and laughing your ass off at the idea that I just called Canada a violent government. And when you're done choking on your own laughter, think for just a moment. Yes, Canada chose to use violence to force people to speak in a particular way. In the United States, we don't have a Tommy Robinson getting locked up for the crime of engaging in the free activity of the press because we have the First Amendment. In the United States, we do not have pretty little blonde girls like Lauren Southern being ejected as terrorists by the government for the, I shit you not, stated crime of being a conservative commentator. In the U.S., we do not have speech compelled at gunpoint by the government like they do now in Canada. In the U.S., unlike Scotland, we do not have comedians being locked up or fined large sums of money for the crime of telling unfunny jokes about Nazi pugs. So if Roseanne had made her comment in Scotland, her tweet, Scotland or the UK, maybe even Canada, she very well could have been charged with a hate crime under those ludicrous laws. Whereas the NFL protesters are more than free, apparently, to not only make claims which are spurious and unsupportable by evidence, but to disparage an entire class of people based on their personal choice to become police officers. Right? Here's the thing. They're free to have these opinions, and they're free to express these opinions. They are not free, under the terms of their individual contracts, to express those opinions. What happened with the cake baker? He refused to engage in a contract which would require him to engage in activity he disagreed with. That's perfectly fine. That sounds good. If somebody comes to me with a contract, maybe they want me to film a movie for them, and I just don't like the pay they're offering. That's reason enough for me to refuse to sign the contract. And that's perfectly within my rights and perfectly within the scope of the law. I think I've adequately covered the issue itself, but there's one more issue that I want to tag related to this. I'm not even going to bring it up. This decision was only just reported within the last hour or so. The first headlines, actually I will bring it up because I'm going to read you some of these headlines. They've been changed. Several of them have just straight up been changed. The first headline out of CNN said, the Supreme Court narrowly narrowly overturns ruling on gay cake maker. They've changed it. Supreme Court rules for Colorado baker in same-sex wedding cake case. The first headline said narrow ruling. They immediately said narrow ruling. That's not incorrect. They were not mistaken when they said narrow ruling. This Ariana DeVoe is the CNN Supreme Court reporter that first reported it. The Supreme Court ruled narrowly in favor of a Colorado baker who refused to bake a cake. Ruled narrowly. The Supreme Court ruled 7-2. 7-2. That's 80%. That's 80%. That's not a narrow ruling. This was not split down party lines. Okay? This is not a narrow ruling. This is a very firm ruling. 7-2. let's see. I'll pull up real quick who the dissenters were. Opinion of the court, society, belief given, group, Phillips, marriage. Okay, so Justice Kagan and Breyer were the only dissenters. It is a general rule that religious and philosophical objections do not allow business owners and other actors in the economy and in society to deny protected persons equal access to goods and services under a neutral and generally applicable public accommodations law. Okay, so the dissent of the dissenting judges is also fallacious. It's a lie, because they're saying that basically they're accusing the baker of just refusing to sell to these people based on his religious preferences or based on their identity. Okay, I'm a baker. I sell donuts. There's nothing about the donuts that makes a political statement. Right? The chocolate donuts aren't a commentary on African Americans. The cream-filled donuts are not a commentary on homosexuals. The jelly-filled donuts are not a commentary on the enemy being filled with chewy nougat. The sprinkle-filled donuts are not a commentary on child abuse. The donuts are just damn pastries. Patrons walk in off the street to buy the donuts. I don't have a conversation with them. I don't know anything about them. I just sell them the damn donuts. A Nazi walks in uniform, swastika on the shoulder, demands a donut, and I tell him to piss off. See? I said piss off. I didn't drop another F-bomb. I'm working on that. And I tell him to piss off. Public accommodations. There's no good reason for me to deny him service. But let me ask you this. Have we left behind the era of the signs that say no shirt, no shoes, no service? Okay. Even this claim that a private business owner should be able to reserve the right to deny service to anybody for any reason whatsoever. It's a private business. But that's not even the claim that they're making here. They're making the claim that you do not have that right as a private business owner to deny service. This is Kagan and Breyer. So, yes, they will be the ones that are coming for your guns. And they're arguing that they denied equal access to goods and services to these people. This is why this is incorrect. It's not just incorrect. Kagan and Breyer are being maliciously, willfully, and intentionally misleading here. Because they're asserting that a tailor-designed, a specially designed, bespoke pastry, a gourmet wedding cake designed with explicit features in support and celebration of gay marriage, is a good that is commonly available to every patron. If the baker doesn't, that's like, it's the same as arguing that the guy is a cake baker and somebody walked in and ordered a pizza and he said, I'm sorry, I don't make those. Here I make cakes. What if I went in and I wanted him to make a wedding cake that was 12 stories tall? And he said, I'm sorry, I don't make cakes that large. That's not unreasonable. Okay? These are the goods I offer. That's perfectly reasonable. These are the goods that I make regularly. Sure. Now, if this was somebody that had a bunch of gay wedding cakes out and he was known for making them and refused to make them for a particular couple, that's a little different. So yeah, to sum up, this decision is correct. The dissenters are lying. The news media trying to report that this was a narrow decision is not mistaken, because they because the wire that they get says 7-2 decision. If you read 7-2 decision and you report narrow decision, you are dishonest. You are willfully misleading people. Period. Gays, sure, let them get married. Like I said, my baby brother, he's gay, he's married, he's my baby brother. That doesn't change shit. He's still my baby brother. He's still one of the strongest, most brilliant men I've ever known. And he is still my brother in arms and one of those rough men that's out there doing violence on your behalf so that you can sleep well in your beds at night. So until next time, remember, our rights, our natural given rights, we do not have them because the government gives them to us. We have our rights the same way that we have organs or a soul. They don't come with us because we're born human. They are part of what defines us as human. They are part of what creates the identity of being an intelligent, sentient, thinking species with moral obligations, the pursuit of which is enabled by our freedom to act. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe and hit the notification. I'll see you soon. And until then, remember, if you build a man a fire, you'll keep him warm for the evening. But if you enlighten him, you give him knowledge, you help him learn, you spread the message of liberty and joy and freedom, and set him on fire, he will be warm for the rest of his life.